You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. And our first guest, who's going to be joined with us in the studio, is Colin. He's from the Sheppey Organ Club. Colin, as always, it's great to have you here in the studio. It's good to have you back as well.
Well, thank you, Daniel. It's very nice of you to invite me back again. It's been a while since I've been here, but it's been nice to be invited back anyway.
Well, I was hoping you could give our listeners a little bit of an introduction into the club and a bit about its history, perhaps.
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm chairman of the Sheppey Organ Club. Have been chairman for 31 years. And the club was started in 1984. I was a founder member of the club in 84. That's 31 years ago. I don't know how many people remember, but there was a music shop which was down near the fire station, owned by Mike Findon, and it was Mike Findon that was really the founder of the Sheppey Organ Club. It was his idea, and he asked a few of us if we would help him form the club and be committee members, and that's how the club started. So it was Mike's idea, and we did start with, I would say, about 40 to 50 members at that time, and it was started at the Masonic Hall.
We're next going to talk all about the venues.
Yeah, well, as I said just now, the club originally started at the Masonic Hall, and we were there for, I think, probably the first couple of years of formation. Then we moved, because we needed a bigger hall, the membership was increasing, so we moved to the Borough Hall at Queenborough, which was our home for many, many years. Unfortunately, I have to say, until the council made some changes in the hall and it was no longer a suitable size for our club membership, and it meant that we had to go for somewhere bigger. And we went to then talk to the Shennessees Working Men's Club at the Halfway, who have been extremely good to the club. They've made us very welcome and very helpful, and that is our present home. Well, I think we've been there about 3 or 4 years now, so that's been our home for that period of time.
So what about the artists?
Well, the artists that we have are all professional players. There are no amateur players as such, and that's not being nasty to amateur players, but they're all professional players from around the country. Last Friday evening, we had an artist, Andrew Nix, who came down from York. Ian Griffin, another artist, comes to the club from Swansea, and that gives an idea of the distances and the areas around the country that they do travel from. Many of them started at a very early age. If you read their profiles, I do produce a newsletter every month which goes out to all members, and there is a profile of the artists that's appearing that month. And in the profile, strange enough, it comes up that most of these artists, these top artists, started playing around about 7 years old. How they do it, I do not know, but they started at 7 and have progressed from there. Ian Griffin, I've had a lot of time for him from Swansea. He accompanies several professional artists. He's got quite a list of professional artists that he's accompanied. He did have a band. I think the band is now sort of disbanded. That's a good word. The band has disbanded, and so they're all into the musical world and very experienced players.
Now I think we're next going to talk a little bit about the committee.
Well, yeah, I'd like to talk about the committee, Daniel. I mean, easy for me to say as chairman. I think the Sheppey Organ Club has been a very successful club. Yeah, we've worked at it, but I think a club is only as strong and as successful as the team that is managing it, if you like. And I've been, as chairman for 31 years, I've been very, very fortunate, and I've always had a very strong and interested committee to work behind me. Otherwise, I can assure you the club would not be anywhere near as successful as it is now. It really goes down to, over the years, there's always been a very, very good committee to manage the club.
So tell us more about the club.
Well, obviously it started off as an organ club wrong thing to say there, because anybody who likes music, not necessarily if they can't play an organ or so, anybody who likes music, they've heard a few tracks and CDs there. It is a musical evening as well for non-players, and I would think that the majority of members do not play the organ. They come along to listen to the music. So we digressed a little bit from an organ club in the fact that again, I think that the bond and the feeling in a club comes from meeting socially and that sort of thing. So we developed the social side of the club, and way back, and this is I've now done 20 odd, we started doing the holiday trips. So we've done quite a lot of the continent. We've been doing probably a holiday trip every year. In fact, we came back from Germany just the week before last from this year's holiday, and I found that people get to know each other. If you go on holiday, in a group, they get to know each other quicker and easier, and they come to the club and you find them all talking. They're talking about the holiday, they talked on the holiday. So I just think it builds up the friendship and that side of it in the club, and I think this has worked. So yes, we do the holidays. I've done sort of about over 20 now, all been very successful, I'm pleased to say. We've got the next one planned is an overnight trip. We're going up to on board the Magellan cruise ship at Tilbury in December, and having one night aboard. So we go up in the afternoon, stay overnight, and come off the next day. So that is the next function that's programmed for the club. But we do, or we have done race nights. We obviously have had dances and that sort of thing. So any social activity, we've done to try and build up the spirit of the club, and I think that has been very successful.
And I think you're next going to talk a little bit about some of the concerts, in particular the Seafront one that you did in the past.
Well, yes. Again, in the early days, we tried to promote the promenade, the Seafront at Sheerness. We used to do Sunday afternoon concerts, and we'd done them for several years. It wasn't just one. We did them for maybe 4 or 5 years at least, I would think, where we'd have a top artist, some of those artists you've been listening to. We had those along. The club paid the expenses and put the concerts. So it was all free, and I think it was trying to go back to the good old days, when people used to walk out on the Sunday afternoon along the promenade and listen to a band and that sort of thing. But very difficult to count numbers. But I know at times we've had sort of 350 people out there, because I know by the number of chairs that was put out, we've had something like 350 people out there, and people coming from Maidstone and all round to listen to a concert. And they were very successful, and they set different challenges for the artists. The seagulls flying overhead, they don't get that in a hall, but they get it on the seafront. So there was lots of challenges for the artists, and I thought they were very successful. Unfortunately, times have changed, and I have to say that public performance licences and that have become very expensive, and we weren't in a situation to cover those sort of costs with the artists' costs, so we discontinued the seafront concerts, which I think was a shame, really, because it was something different, and some of these other seaside resorts, they have the band there on a Sunday afternoon, so why not Sheppey? But
I think we're going to talk a little bit about the future around the country.
Well, yes, and I've got to say it's not a very good picture, Daniel, really, because it is very difficult to get youth of today interested in. They say organ music, and that puts up the barriers. They're not interested, sort of thing. So it is, if you like, a more elderly audience, and it's very difficult to get youngsters to come in. Well, we're all getting to that age group, I think, where I know several of the clubs around the country, and it was a very strong thing around the country, plenty of clubs there, but I do know several clubs that are closing and that sort of thing, because they're finding it job to get committee people to help with the running of the club, and several clubs are closing because of that situation, which is very sad, really, because I would like to think that with the Sheppey Organ Club, there's many single women and that sort of thing come along to the club, and they like coming to the club, And I'm sure that is the same around the country, that it's just sad that it is an elderly people's entertainment, if you like, if that's the right way to put it, and it is closing. But is this a cycle that happens? I mean, I did speak to you earlier on about the big band situation. I mean, I can remember when, in my earlier days, let's put it that way, we used to follow the big bands around Ted Heath, Ken McIntosh, Joe Loss. That was our era where we would go off to the Star at Maidstone and dance and stand in front of the stage and listen to the music. So I don't think the youth of today has changed. They've got a different style of music, yes, but I don't think it's any different to us, really. I mean, our parents probably thought, well, what are they going to stand in front of a big band for and listen? I just think it's a shame that these things sort of die out, and when there's still a big section of the population that thoroughly enjoy it.
So what about publicity and promotion?
Well, again, it's very easy to sort of blame other people. I think as our own club, then, we've tried everything as far as publicity and promotion's concerned, and I talk to other clubs, and they are doing the same sort of thing to try and increase their audiences, increase their support. I find it very difficult, and I'm going to be critical of some of the people on the Isle of Sheppey, if you like, that I get people come to me and say that they didn't know there was an organ club on the island after 31 years when we put posters out. I'm talking to you on Bridge Radio. We've done open-air concerts on the seafront. I just find it a little bit difficult that people haven't heard of the Sheppey Organ Club. But I know this is a situation all around the country. I know where in Scotland, I think it's Dunfermline, they hired or engaged a professional artist to go and play in their shopping forum on a Saturday afternoon, and evidently it was quite successful. But it was all done to try and promote organ music or music in general, if you like. So it is a very difficult thing to do, to get across that. You've heard some of the tracks. It sounds like you're listening to an orchestra, not just an organ, and that's very difficult to get across to people that is what they're coming to.
So I know you next wanted to talk a little bit about modern music and television.
Well, yeah, the thing that I feel is missing, if you like, is the fact that probably it's the age group I'm in, but I do think that I'm very critical of what's on television, and I don't think I watch that much television. I'm very selective. But I think that there's a lot missing on television. We get a lot of repeats and a lot of certain programmes like cookery programmes and flog it and things like that, which, people enjoy it and they like. But I do feel that it's overdone, and I do feel there's lots of other types of entertainment that could be put onto television and the radio, if you like, and I think that could be music. I think there are still very much an elderly population that can remember the big bands, as I said earlier on, Ted Heath, Ken McIntosh. That is still popular with them, and even the organ artists. I mean, I think they play some of the older tunes, which I think is good entertainment, and I think that's probably why clubs are so successful, that they do play the music of more of yesterday. And I just think that I think television could really help to promote that. And I don't really think they look for any different entertainment. They look for the easy options out. I'm being very critical there, and that you might get many phone calls, Daniel, after I've gone, but I've gone then, you take the phone calls.
And before you go, I was hoping you could just give our listeners sort of any refreshers, anything you'd like to cover, and all those useful contact details, and of course tell them about that last track we just heard. Well,
the last track was by another very, very popular artist throughout the country, one of the best, I think, and that was Tony Stace, who comes down from Catterick village in Yorkshire, and he was playing Angel in Blue, which again, it gets a lot of requests at the club to be played. But I do thank you for having me on the programme, Daniel, and what I would like to say is I would hope that several of the members of the club, many members of the club, have been listening tonight, I hope they're satisfied with the programme that I've asked you to put together. I think I've tried to cover the artists that I think are popular, and that's Phil Brown, Nicholas Martin, Steve Hubble, Brett Wells, Claudia Hirschfield, Dirk Jan Ransine, Andrew Nix, Chris Powell, Ian Griffin, Tony Stace, and then the last one that you will hear is being played by Key Click. So I've tried to cover some of the top artists in the country that come to the Shenandoah Club. To those that aren't members of the club, I hope you've enjoyed this evening, and we would always be pleased to see you. We meet on the last Friday of the month at the Shenandoah Working Men's Club at the halfway. As I say, you all are welcome. It's very cheap. It's only £4 to come in, or if you want to join the club, it is a £5 membership subscription. And I can give you my telephone number if you want to have any further information concerning the club. You can get my number is 664 007. So you're quite welcome to phone me if there's anybody that has enjoyed what they're listening to this evening and think they would like to come along to the club and see what it's all about. We'd be very, very welcome to have you there. And also remember the social side as well. There is a social side of the club. It's not just music all the time. So as I say, once again, I thank Daniel for inviting me to come along and play on Bridge Radio. I've enjoyed it, and I certainly hope that you have. And thank you, Daniel.
No, thank you for coming along and giving us the opportunity to do that.